What was the most profitable investment of the previous decade? Was it a share in Google or Amazon? It was neither of the two, but Bitcoins. A $100 investment in 2010 is now worth $36 million, or a 6,000 rupee investment is now worth 270 crores. Why do we call Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, and what is the technology that fuels it, which is the blockchain technology? Well, we discussed about that in the previous video. Today we shall try to address the next question, that is, how does a person earn a Bitcoin? The first method is through Bitcoin mining, which is actually running a computer program in order to solve the hash of a Bitcoin network. Upon solving this hash, the computer receives a reward in the form of a Bitcoin. But where do we store the Bitcoin that we received in this process? Just as we have a physical wallet to store our money, Bitcoin being a virtual currency, we also need a virtual wallet to store them. This virtual wallet can be created using an application. It just needs an address to it, which can be opened through a personal password that we can set. And once a person has this Bitcoin address, he is set to go. And if he wants to send any amount of Bitcoin to any other person, he needs to know the address of the recipient as well. And this will become a transaction, and any other computer that solves this transaction will again be rewarded in the form of Bitcoin, and this process goes on and on. The next question that we have is, can we also earn Bitcoins through Bitcoin mining? Yes, we can do that through the normal computers or the laptops that we have, but there is a small problem. The competition for Bitcoin mining has enormously increased over the years, and therefore only computers which has high intense graphics or computational power can guess the hash even before our normal computers can. And that's why today mining requires a huge investment. It requires so much of processing power, and therefore it's a costly affair. You could have heard about some YouTubers promoting that they have invested so much in this Bitcoin mining and they are earning a revenue. And therefore, as common folks, we can't use our computers right now to mine a Bitcoin. You could have done that some years ago, but not today. So does that mean that only those who can mine or can invest heavily can own a Bitcoin and others cannot? Well, it's not so. All those who have mined Bitcoin need to spend it at some place or the other. This is the second method. If you're able to provide a service for which you can receive Bitcoins, then of course you can own it. But what if we don't have anything to sell for a Bitcoin? Here comes the third method. If there is anybody who is willing to sell you a Bitcoin, you can buy that with the currencies that you are having. And for that you need to know who is going to sell and who is going to buy. This can be done on a platform called as exchanges. Today there are a lot of crypto exchanges around the world. By the sheer size and popularity, there are two important crypto exchanges in the world. One is Binance and the other is Coinbase. Once we open an account in these exchanges, they will facilitate an address for you, and you can send or receive or can sell, you can buy whatever you want. Apart from just facilitating an exchange, there is another important reason why crypto exchanges are important, and that is the risk of losing your Bitcoins. If you have stored your Bitcoins in your personal wallet of your computer, and if you forget the password or something happens to your hard drive, it is lost forever. But if you store your Bitcoins in an exchange, they would be managing the addresses for you. And you know what? Nearly 20% of the Bitcoins that have been ever mined till now has been lost forever. In the early days of 2009 and 10, people started experimenting with this Bitcoin. Many entered into this mining and began to collect a lot of Bitcoins. In 2010, there was a famous incident of the pizza. A person claimed that he would pay Bitcoins for anybody who was going to order him some pizzas. A person responded by ordering 2 pizzas, and he was paid 10,000 Bitcoins in return. It was absolutely worthless at that time. But slowly people began to hear about it. The word spread out, more people came in, they started experimenting. And the value of the Bitcoin shot up from $0.008 to $0.08. It reached $1 mark within a year. And there was no stopping this juggernaut. In no time it reached $10, $100, $1,000 and $10,000. It reached the highest value of $60,000 in 2020-21. But what explains this insane growth in its value? Number one is growing popularity. Unless you've been living under a rock, by now, almost all of you would have heard about Bitcoin. That was not the case some 5 years back. And because more and more people hear about it, they are eager to get hold of this Bitcoin. The second is the acceptance by many payment systems. In 2010, there was not any service provider that was going to accept Bitcoins, but today there are a host of services in the world that can be paid for using Bitcoins. For example, PayPal, eBay, and a lot others. And perhaps the most important reason is speculation and trading. A speculation that someday there will be a mass adoption of Bitcoin, and if it happens, then the value of it is going to skyrocket. People feel that it is a new gold, and right now it is just a treasure that is cheaply available. Many of us today are interested in Bitcoin because of its booming value, but there seems to be an irony in it. Bitcoin was actually conceived to be a currency. But if you think that something is going to be valuable tomorrow, then you're not going to spend it today, and therefore it loses the function of a currency. And that is what the problem of Bitcoin is. It was actually conceived to be the currency, but today people are treating it as an asset. The world is divided as to whether Bitcoin is a currency or an asset. While it is true that it has given a lot of value to people who have stored it or bought Bitcoin in the early stages, and today there are even Bitcoin billionaires and millionaires, there are extreme downside risks to it as well that we should be aware of. The first and the foremost problem of Bitcoins is the consumption of energy. As the demand for Bitcoin mining and the currency itself increases, the difficulty of mining a block also increases. Today, the amount of electricity consumed for Bitcoin mining itself is greater than the consumption of an entire country. And therefore, when the whole world is talking about alternative forms of electricity, this can be a problem. And perhaps this is one of the reasons why even Elon Musk, one of the most famous crypto enthusiasts, decided not to accept Bitcoin. And if the government feels that it's going to be valuable, it can spark a worldwide competition among governments to mine this Bitcoin. Then there is the scalability issue of Bitcoin. There are 700 crore people in the world, and if 21 million Bitcoins are to be distributed, how well is this going to be distributed? It is going to be extremely difficult for some people to get hold of this Bitcoin. As the value increases, there is a trickier problem as well. Even 0.0001 Bitcoin will have some value, and people are going to have a hard time in making a sense of how to transact. There is even a design flaw in it. A person who is going to send 200 Bitcoin and a person who is going to send 0.1 Bitcoin is considered as the same transaction. And the time taken for it is around 10 minutes. A 10-minute time would not be a deal breaker when it comes to sending money from here to Australia. But can you spend 10 minutes for a small transaction that you do at a grocery shop? The transaction per second of a Bitcoin network is only 7 versus 24,000 transactions per second that a Visa system can do. And therefore, the credibility of Bitcoin as a payment system is failing. Fourth is the problem of regulation. Since even the government does not know what this technology is about, they don't know how to regulate it, whether as a currency or an asset or a capital. And therefore, the degree of regulation is not uniform across the world. And the other reason that many people are skeptical about Bitcoin is because of its role in scams and illegal activities. There have been many scams that have been reported and are still underreported, and since this is a completely unregulated space, there have been cropping up many scams one after the other. And finally, the most important reason is volatility. The volatile nature of Bitcoin makes it a do-or-die kind of an investment. You could have heard about many positive news about cryptocurrencies saying that somebody who had nothing became a millionaire. All this kind of things we could have heard about. But remember that only success stories are heard. Many have lost their hard-earned money because of the volatility of Bitcoins. For example, the value of Bitcoin reached $20,000 in December 2017 itself. A year later, it was just $3,000. Even if we were optimistic about Bitcoins and its mass adoption, there is another question to bear in mind, and that is the problem of inequality. Both as a currency or an asset, Bitcoin can lead to widening of inequality. And how do we address this inequality? Unfortunately, we don't have enough answers for it. Recently, you could have heard about El Salvador, a country in South America which made Bitcoin as a legal tender. There is some misconception about this phrase of legal tender. People feel that it is illegal because Bitcoin is not a legal tender. But it is not so, because even a check is not a legal tender, a demand draft is not a legal tender, gold is also not a legal tender. And therefore it is completely legitimate to buy and sell Bitcoins. Even in India, there are a lot of crypto exchanges that allows you to buy and sell Bitcoins. You could have seen advertisements saying that you can invest in Bitcoins for as low as 100 rupees. But in the year 2018, the RBI sent a circular to the bank saying that they should refrain from having any kind of financial relationship with crypto exchanges. The crypto exchanges filed a court case, and in March 2020, the court ruled in favor of the crypto exchanges. So as of now, the status is that you can buy and sell crypto exchanges, but RBI is holding on to the position that Bitcoins will pose a problem to the financial stability of India. We still don't have a clarity as to whether the government will regulate cryptocurrencies or will outrightly ban them. The whole world and the business community is divided on the question of Bitcoins. While some influential business people like Elon Musk are willing to embrace the concept of Bitcoin, others like Warren Buffett and the famed economist who predicted the 2008 financial crisis, Nouriel Roubini, are skeptical of Bitcoins. Even some countries like China, Iran and the US have been cracking down on Bitcoin mining, and if at all it becomes a security threat, it would be a downhill for Bitcoins. If you still feel that the value of Bitcoins are going to increase and you need to immediately invest, then there is even a word for it: FOMO, or the fear of missing out. As a word of caution, I would suggest that you should not jump into the world of cryptocurrencies without doing your research. And especially for the middle class people, it would be prudent to wait until the government comes out with a clarity as to how it is going to regulate cryptocurrencies. The purpose of this video was to present a balanced and a 360-degree view on the intriguing world of cryptocurrencies, and it is not meant to be a financial advice. It would be very early to conclude whether Bitcoins are going to be the game changer or just the fraud of the century. In the next video, we shall try to explain as to how other cryptocurrencies have emerged, trying to plug the gaps of Bitcoin. Thank you for watching this video.